Hey guys, it's Harry from Pod is Life here, and the basketball season, the NBA season is back. Finally, we have some professional basketball back in our lives, but before the action starts on the court, I've got the 5 biggest questions that we need answers for when it comes to this NBA season, so let's start right now. All right, guys, first up, our 5th biggest question going into this year is the Rookie of the Year race. Now, I know that a lot of you have penciled in already Zion Williamson to win that award, and while I don't think you're wrong, I think it's going to be at least a lot closer than we think because of one man in Memphis, Ja Morant. The 2nd overall pick for the Memphis Grizzlies is going to get the ball a ton this year. He's going to get a high usage rate. He's going to get a bunch of highlights. He's going to be a ton of fun to watch, and especially right at the beginning of the year here, there's going to be a lot of talk about him and about the Grizzlies because Zion Williamson is out for a period of weeks with a knee injury. How long? We don't really know. And I think the Pelicans are going to keep that very much under lock and key because A, they don't want people to freak out. They don't want this injury-prone conversation to start. And so who knows when we're going to see Zion Williamson back on the court. Hopefully it's soon. But in that meantime, Ja Morant is going to start racking up those numbers, racking up those highlights, and all of these major awards when it comes to the NBA, it's all about narrative. And Ja Morant's going to have plenty of time to build that narrative for himself, especially here in the forefront. So here's to saying that Ja Morant might be our Rookie of the Year. Our 4th biggest question going into this NBA season is, do we have to call the Toronto Raptors the defending champs? Now, I say this because technically, yes, the Larry O'Brien Trophy is in Canada. It's up north. And first off, we're not talking about that enough that the USA doesn't have Larry O'B, but we'll get to that later. More importantly, every single time Toronto Raptors are introduced, it's going to be the defending champions, Toronto Raptors, which notably, they did win. Congratulations, Toronto. Well done. But it feels pretty insincere to mention that without talking about how the biggest factor of said championship run is no longer in Toronto. He's out in LA. He went to the Clippers. That is Kawhi Leonard. So it's going to be a really weird year when everyone says, oh, we beat the defending champs, but not really because it's a totally different team now. So I'm just trying to figure out what exactly we're going to do there. Toronto, obviously the defending champs, but it doesn't mean the same thing to knock off the defending champs if they don't have that same team back together. So haven't really figured this one out yet, but what are we really going to do here? It's something I'm interested about because Toronto is going to play like the defending champs, but they have to know that they're missing a pretty big piece, right? Our 3rd biggest question going into the NBA season, do the Lakers have enough depth to get to the promised land? LeBron James, not in the playoffs last year, a very rare occurrence for one of the best basketball players of all time, depending on how close to Northeast Ohio you were born. But that offseason, probably great for LeBron. Obviously, they got Anthony Davis in a trade, but in that trade, they had to give away a bunch of young talent and depth. So now the Lakers, if you look at it, one, they lost DeMarcus Cousins to an ACL injury. No timeline for his return. Kyle Kuzma is day-to-day. And outside of that, already they're starting to look pretty thin. If you can say one thing negatively about LeBron James, the GM, it's that he doesn't really have the foresight for that roster construction. Yes, you got your bright, shiny new toy in Anthony Davis, but if you look around, the rest of the roster now is not that great. So once you get past that starting line, the Lakers do not have the whole lot of depth. They're going to rely on people like Quinn Cook, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, JaVale McGee, and Jared Dudley for that second unit. And can you really rely on that when you get deep in the playoffs and your rotations? Yes, they do start to tighten up, but you still need some of that second unit to give your guys rest. Otherwise, we're going to have the same conversations that we've had over and over again where LeBron is carrying the mantle for this team. LeBron doesn't have enough depth. But this time, it is really 100% on LeBron. And I know Anthony Davis's MRI came back clean on his thumb, but definitely something to look out for there too. Do the Lakers have enough depth? Probably not. Our 2nd biggest question of the NBA season, is there enough basketball to go around in Houston? It's a question that we have asked time and time again since Moneyball began with the Houston Rockets. But this time is really going to be put to the test. For the first time, the Rockets now have 2 players on their roster that last year were top 10 in usage, with James Harden number 1 by far and Russell Westbrook number 10, rounding out that top 10. It's hard to imagine that both of those guys can keep up those numbers, considering statistically, and there's just not that much basketball to go around. Now, we've seen Rockets obviously, yes, do well, compete, get far into the playoffs, but we've also seen it not work out with Melo, not work out with CP3, and now we get Russell Westbrook in there, and history says that Harden's the guy. So is Westbrook going to accommodate? How is this going to work out? Is Westbrook going to get frustrated and ask for his way out like some of these other pieces have? Can the Rockets sustain 2 ball-dominant guards? I don't think they can. It's a matter of how much does Russell Westbrook want to win and want to sacrifice to get this team to the next level. And our last and biggest question for this NBA season actually stays with the Rockets too, but not on the court, off the court. If you haven't heard, Daryl Morey, the GM of the Rockets, sent out what may end up being the most expensive tweet of all time. He retweeted a tweet that was in favor of the Hong Kong protests, and the retaliation to that from China has been enormous. Games are no longer being broadcast as of right now in China, that is NBA games, and the league is worried. There are reports that China wanted the NBA to fire Daryl Morey. The Rockets did not do this. Instead, the NBA came out and essentially said that they are on the side of their personnel making informed decisions on their own. They're not going to come in and say what these people should say about certain issues. But everyone is acutely aware of how big and how important of a market China is for the NBA. So there are reports from Keith Smart of Yahoo that teams are already getting plans in place for a scenario where the NBA salary cap declines 10 to 15% if this China thing really goes south. So you're looking at teams potentially losing $17 million from this year to next year to spend on salaries, which could have huge implications for a lot of these teams, and not just for rookie contracts coming up, but for your current roster construction, looking ahead to players and plans that you may already have had in place to bring out and to keep people on the roster that you may not be able to afford anymore. So definitely something to keep an eye on with what exactly is going to happen here with the NBA and with China. But for right now, all we know is that this is on very thin ice between these two organizations, between a country and an organization, I should say. And the NBA really wants this to work out, because otherwise they're going to have to find a backup plan to basically support their own teams, instead of saying, hey guys, you now have $17 million less than we thought we were going to have. So you're not going to be able to re-sign that all-star or keep selling those jerseys you wanted to sell because there's no more money. Thanks for watching, guys. Going to be a great NBA season. Super excited about it. Make sure you subscribe to keep up with the latest NBA content that we have out there. And everyone, let's just sit back and enjoy some NBA basketball.